It's a people, it's a community, it's a life, it's a heart, it's a spirit.
Parents of gay children say, I want my son, my gay son, to have the same opportunity to come to me and say, hey, Dad, I'm getting married, as my non-gay son or my non-gay daughter.
The heck would you want a picture of a tattoo of $1,000 on your penis for?
You might just need to satisfy yourself sexually alone at that point.
Do I regret it? Not one bit. Did I think that I would actually take it the next step and do it again?
And what goes into their life, how they handle it. There are 12 houses, and each one of those houses has a particular function.
Look into yourself, think about it, and just be whoever it is that speaks to you.
Hello and welcome to Talking About. I've got a big show for you tonight. First up, I want to welcome Jason J., actor, singer, dancer, model. That's a pretty broad spectrum, and I want to welcome you.
Thank you, John.
Okay, that, like I said, that is a broad career choice, or is it?
It's interesting you mentioned that. A lot of right now I'm focusing my my talents in the music industry, but in this field, within the talent industry, you have to be fairly diversified, and also you have to do what pays the bills. And sometimes the modeling and the acting will pay the bills, which will afford me time to write and record and so forth.
Okay. Well, what in your life led you into this career choice? I mean, as I understand it, you are from upstate New York.
Yeah. Born and raised upstate New York, about 400 miles from here, the middle child of three. And ever since I was young, I'd watch TV and really be so interested and in tune with the characters that were on screen or the performers on stage. And going to, during school, I would do school stage and theater. And then after school, I'd do some regional theater. And I enjoyed so much the adrenaline, the rush of being on stage and the aspect of performing and all that energy exchanging, giving and taking and so forth. And so this has always been a dream of mine. And I told myself while I was in upstate New York that I would pursue an education, make sure that was under my belt, because last thing I'd want to do is be a starving artist here. And so I came to New York and I just full blast been trying to do my thing.
Okay, well, what sort of education and training do you have?
In terms of?
In terms of the performing arts.
Well, there's a school back home, Metropolitan School for the Arts, and I had 4 years of onstage body communication, 2 years of acting, 3 years of vocal lessons, on top of your performing, which is a slew of everything from stage to theater to TV to you name it.
Okay, and once you got to the quote-unquote big city, and what's the first move that you made?
The first move was coming to grips with reality, which is the big city is much different from small town.
So was it kind of stars in your eyes, and then reality?
Reality hits, and it can take the glitter out of your eyes if you don't keep perspective, if you don't keep your eyes on your goal. So at first, I think I got so involved with doing extra work, which is fairly big, and that started to take that glitter out of my eye, and I didn't want that to happen. So I took my focus off of extra work, and I either limited the amount of extra work that I accepted, or I just got into other fields, such as modeling, and then I started doing my songwriting.
Okay, well, when you say extra work, that would be a background performer in?
The little fuzzy white cotton ball you see in the back of TV shows.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify for somebody who might not know that.
Yeah.
So that led into the modeling?
Led into, being more closer to the camera. So I got some comp cards done, which are also called Z cards, composite cards. You send to photographers or prospective clients for print work, catalog, runway, whatever the case may be. That got me a little more in front of the camera, on top of some more experience, more comfort, raise my comfort level with the camera, on top of making some connections with print work, photographers. Also, you get a name of this person, you get a name of that person, and you just start networking.
Okay, well, how do you basically go about beginning to form that network?
Well, I'll tell you, if I could turn back the hands of time, I would go into marketing in college because pretty much any field is marketing. Let's face it. My field, your field, any field is marketing. You can have the best product at the very best price, no matter what. But if people don't know about it, you're sitting on nothing. So basically, what I did was out there every single day, giving anyone that would take it some material. Fortunately, I have a computer, and I'm on there 4 or 5 hours a day, trying to find networking connections, the whole 9 yards.
Okay, networking, and I mean the computer is the primary source of finding
Absolutely.
work these days also.
It is. It is. There's also some magazines and literature in terms within the talent business, because a lot of people don't have a computer, which I find surprising in today's
In this
day.
well,
But
it still costs.
yeah.
Costs many tips.
But people don't even take advantage of the free computers at the library. Either I mean, a lot of people still say they're computer illiterate, which is understandable, I guess.
Well, I mean, so much of the computer world is pretty idiot-proof. So go get one.
Or go to the library.
Yes. Okay, so from modeling, did that kind of lead you back to the acting, or?
Actually, from modeling, that helped me pay the rent, so I didn't have to go get a job, so I can spend time being more careful choosing roles in terms of acting, staying home to write songs, record songs. Everything was a building block to the next, and still is, to the next avenue, to the next goal.
Okay. Well, you mentioned staying home and writing songs. From what I understand about you, the prelude to the song was the poem.
Yeah, I actually, it was one of those days where I left the house and I was at open mic poetry, and I was reciting a poem, and I was approached by this person who said he did some music back in the 80s, and said, that's a really good, those are some interesting lyrics, I'd like to put some music to it. And I was taken back at first because I didn't come here to by any means perform or sing, but one thing led to another. We recorded our first track, which went very, well. It went over well. I sent it to record pools, and it was in the top 10 in every record pool that I sent it to. It got airplay on pretty much every independent radio station that I sent it to. College radios were playing it. I was getting quite a few emails with fantastic results and feedback from my first song, Emotions. So I was very fortunate in that aspect.
Okay.
Which led me to being interested in the whole songwriting and singing and recording and performing.
Which is, another branch of the tree again.
Yeah.
And you did bring a Roland of a performance that you had done recently. What is the song on the video? The video song.
Yeah, the tape that you have, I believe, is "I'll Be Your Friend." I sang it at the Gramercy in New York City. Believe it or not, my manager at the time, who has now relocated to the West Coast, hired a professional person to tape the show. But as I'm sure our viewers will see, he probably wasn't the best photographer. But that's me at the Gramercy, and I was singing "I'll Be Your Friend."
Okay, so whenever our good director is ready, we'll take a look at that right now.
Sounds good.
Okay, and how long ago was that?
Boy, 3.5, 4 months ago.
Okay.
That song, "I'll Be Your Friend," actually was written for my sister. She was going through a hard time, and I sat down and I wrote a song. And when I write songs, they go through stages, from the implementary stage to what I call the processing stage, which is my own time, being alone, sitting down, and putting myself in the moment. And I find when you put yourself in the moment, you can relate so much more. Excuse me. And when you relate and be and are in the moment, your lyrics just tend to flow. And with I'll Be Your Friend, after singing that song, someone came up to me in the audience and he was just like, bro, I want you to know that song hit here, and that was really nice. And it just makes you feel good as a performer, that you could relate to your audience and you could do some benefit to your audience. So that was nice.
Right. Well, if you're not connecting with the audience, you're not connecting with anyone, there's no market for you.
You're absolutely right.
And which a lot of people who have made it need a kick in the butt to remind them that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
To describe yourself, say 5 years in the future, star or working artist?
Ooh, working artist, definitely. Which could have the connotation also as star, celebrity, things like that. I always tell everyone, if I can simply make ends meet doing what I love, my passion in life, that's all I'm asking for, And my love and my passion is to perform, is to sing, is to act. And if I can make ends meet and be happy doing that and touch others and connect with others, I'm happy.
Okay, and you've been doing a lot more in the recording studio lately?
Oh yeah. I have a latest track, which I think we're going to run a sample of it. Here I Am.
Yeah, we're going to let that run as we continue talking, so the audience can listen in a little bit.
Yeah.
And what brought this track about?
Here I Am. Believe it or not, I'm even my primary genre is dance. But if you listen to my lyrics, they're torch lyrics. They're a lot about pain and despair and things like that. And Here I Am, it's a very catchy Euro pop dance song. But if you listen to the lyrics, basically it's about, might I add, I sing a lot of my lyrics from experience, but it's about pretty much being dumped and this feeling of despair and coming to grips with the reality of being left, but still having strong feelings for the person leaving you. And so I'm telling the person in the song, that's fine, you're leaving, but just I want you to know that I'm the one that's always going to love you. I'm going to love you forever, and I want you to be okay. So I'm giving them, some cash and cards and things like that. So, even though the songs are dance material, a lot of them are definite torch songs.
Okay. Your performance venues, are a lot of those mainly dance type clubs, or?
Yeah, they're clubs. Some festivals, obviously benefits, everything from performing solo to opening up for other bands. Sometimes, because my music is so upbeat, up-tempo, the directors of festivals or clubs or what have you want me to actually get the audience alive. So I'll come out there and do my thing and get the audience going. That way when the band comes out, they're already warmed up and in the whole 9 yards. So depending on the venue, the place, they tell me the time they want me, and I give them that amount of time.
Okay, and if the viewing audience wants to know where they can find you, do you have a website?
Yeah, my website is www.jasonj.biz.
Biz.
B-I-Z, yeah. I get a lot of, is that jasonj.biz.com? No, so no, it's
.biz.
Like showbiz.
Just like, and there will be a link to that on the talkingabout.info website. And I want to thank you for joining me. Our time together is up. And right now we are going to check in with Dr. Cynthia, who is going to be answering a viewer question about relationships. So stick with us as we ask Dr. Cynthia. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Ask Dr. Cynthia. I'm Dr. Cynthia Pizzulli, certified sex therapist. And today we have an interesting question from Laquanda, who writes, "It's been 6 months since my husband and I had our first baby, and he doesn't seem as interested in me sexually anymore. It isn't a weight issue, so what could the problem be?" Now, first of all, I think it's very, very interesting that the first thing you thought about Laquanda is whether it's about his attraction to you or your appearance or something like that, as if it's probably something about you that's causing his sex drive to drop. That's very common for women to think that, and it's also very common for that not to be the problem. There are a lot of causes of low sex drive, and a lot of people think, well, men never have a low sex drive, women are the ones with a low sex drive, but that's not true at all. As a matter of fact, one of the top 3 reasons people come in for therapy, for couples counseling, is because the man's sex drive has dropped off. Now, especially in your case, I mean, exhaustion could be a factor. Maybe your husband's under a lot of stress at the office. There could be a lot of reasons why he hasn't really been as interested in sex as he has been in the past. But you gotta talk to him about it. If you don't say, listen, I was just, feeling really undesired lately. I feel like, maybe there's something wrong, that you don't really want to have sex with me anymore. If you don't communicate this to him, then you can't address the problem. And as I said on this program many times before, that's the #1 issue with couples. They don't tell each other how they're feeling. So LaQuanda, what I think you should do is tell him that these things are bothering you. Try to address it with him. Maybe you'll find some information out that could be very helpful. And if that doesn't work, the two of you can see a couples counselor to talk about these issues and hopefully get a more fulfilling relationship and sex life out of it. Thank you very much for writing. And if any of you have any other questions or issues, feel free to email me or write to the address on your screen.
Well, and welcome back. I want to thank Dr. Cynthia for those words of wisdom and advice. My guest for the second half of the program, David Israel. Welcome.
Thank you, John.
Okay. Your unique factor that brought you to me today is sort of a turn on your career path. But that's getting sort of to the end of the story. Let's kind of back up and start at the beginning. Through your youth, you had intended to have a musical career?
That's right. I started with trumpet lessons the way many kids do in grade school, and progressed to guitar and piano eventually, and studied music in college, and thought I was going to be, the next Stephen Sondheim or Leonard Bernstein.
Okay. Well, where did that career take you? You were working fairly regularly from what I read, unless I misunderstood the details.
When I was in college, about 2 or 3 months before I graduated, undergrad, I met one of Leonard Bernstein's assistants, and was given the opportunity to work on Bernstein's music at the time of my graduation. So I moved from Hart College of Music in Connecticut to this completely other world in New York City, working in Bernstein's house in the Dakota on 72nd Street, going through West Side Story, which was the first score I was asked to work on. There had never been a definitive edition of West Side Story, an orchestral score.
Okay.
So that was the first job I took, and then I kind of parlayed that into a full-time position there, working on Bernstein's music for the next 5 years.
Okay. Did that bring you into and out of a lot of different people's lives that might be recognizable names?
Oh, sure. I had dinner with Lauren Bacall, and was hobnobbing with a lot of Bernstein's circle because I was basically in it. He had just passed away. This was 90, 91. He passed away in late 90, and I was hired mid 91. So the family and the estate was working very hard to keep up his presence, to keep up his personality in the public eye, in the papers. So there were regular concerts and parties celebrating his big birthdays, and different pieces that we would finish that he had been working on were celebrated and given big galas, and so there was pretty constant contact with a lot of bigwigs, and enabled my career to take off too.
And did it take off with you working on other people's work, or did it take off from working on your own?
Both. I mean, I enjoyed the work I did for Bernstein. I was happy to be an editor of his music. It was an honor that most musicians dream about. Certainly he had been an idol of mine when I was growing up. But I had my own aspirations, and I wanted to get my music out there as well. And so through contacts I made working with him, and just through pounding the pavement, I was able to start to sell my own wares and get my own commissions.
And what style of music was this at this point?
It was pretty much following this line that Copland Bernstein had set up, kind of urban, classical, funky, jazzy, orchestral music, mostly for dance, because that was the thread that I really wanted to pick up. Wasn't so much interested in opera, some concert music. I worked with small orchestras, chamber orchestras, and on one occasion the American Symphony Orchestra at Lincoln Center, but mostly dance music.
Okay, and ultimately, where did that lead you?
Ultimately, that led me to nowhere, basically. It led me to a lot of frustration and a lot of disillusionment.
How so? I mean, where had your hopes been and where were you?
I guess I had hoped that I would fall in line with this lineage that I've been talking about, kind of Gershwin, Copland, Bernstein, this American Jewish line of composers. And I felt like, at first I felt like I had been handed the torch and I could just run with it. But I became disillusioned because the kind of music that I was writing wasn't popular with the establishment. While it was popular with the audience and with concert-going people, the higher-ups who made the decisions and doled out the commissions probably found my music too accessible, too commercial. And that's where the disillusionment came.
Too commercial or too non-commercial?
Too commercial.
Too commercial.
Yeah. Commissions seemed to go to more academic composers, more composers who I felt were self-consciously trying to explore ground that had already been explored by my way of thinking. Whereas I wanted to reach people, I wanted to communicate with the masses and sell my music.
And did this lead to empty cupboards? I mean, were you the starving artist?
Well, fortunately, there was this other world of dance where commercial music and where rhythmic, accessible music is coveted. The problem I found was that the composer was kind of second tier. Dance is pretty much about the choreographer. And it's a shame because if you look at the history of classical ballet and modern dance, there are these wonderful unions between choreographer and composer, whether it was Balanchine and Stravinsky or I'm blanking on another one right now, but it seemed to me that the work I did with Paul Taylor or Twyla Tharp, great choreographers, fantastic experiences, left me disillusioned, left me feeling like there's something missing here. And it wasn't just that I was being treated like, a second-rate artist. It was the feeling that the music wasn't as important as the choreography.
Okay, and did that bring you to a point where the music wasn't as important to you as well?
It's a good question. Quite possibly. Quite possibly. I just felt like things weren't clicking. The music was forced. I was disconnecting from what my real purpose was, the kind of music that I love to write. There would be premieres that I wasn't invited to. There would be just little things like one choreographer who'll remain nameless asked me to take the piece that I had written and translate it. It was written for one kind of a sound, the orchestra, a small orchestra, and asked me to translate it or transpose it for the sitar. And it's a bit of an insult because it shows a lack of respect.
Okay.
And without, feeling like I was, well, I just became disillusioned, quite frankly.
And at what point did you sort of throw in the towel for a while?
I reached my breaking point around, I would say, 1998, 99. and my health was declining. It was getting too difficult to pay the bills. The stress of not knowing where the next check was coming from, the stress of feeling like everything I was doing was for nothing ultimately, and the stress of feeling like there was just never going to be a point where I was going to achieve something.
And was that, I mean, there's depression factored in there, but was that clinical depression also?
It wasn't clinical, but it definitely pushed me over the edge, and I just kind of moved. I left the city. I went to the Middle East for 2.5 years.
That's a little more than leaving the city.
Yeah. I went, well, when I moved to the Middle East, a little desert town in the south of Israel, the second Intifada hadn't started yet. So it was peaceful. It was pretty peaceful, and Camp David had just happened, and Clinton and Barack, and it seemed like peace was imminent, and that was in the air. And if you talk to Israelis at that time, they said, we know that peace is going to be made with the Palestinians. We just don't know what's going to happen with the Syrians.
Okay.
Well, of course, everything changed about 8 months later.
But at what point did you leave and come back? What point did you come back?
I left in '99, and I came back in 2002.
Okay. And was there a revelation or the finding of yourself in that period?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I went from this New York City high stress, high tension, you know, kind of lifestyle to sitting in the desert and watching my leg hairs grow. As I like to say, it was a complete removal, you know, complete about face, and those years really allowed me to get in touch with what I wanted to do, who I was.
And what do you want to do?
I wanted to write fiction, write for TV, write for movies, write essays.
So the music is now out of the picture, and the written word has taken on a different meaning in its own way.
That's right. It's the same muscles. It comes from the same place. It's just using letters instead of notes.
Okay. And we're just about out of time for this segment. I do want to have you back because I know you have a book coming out in the not too distant future. Is there a website where people can find out more information about you?
Absolutely.
And that is?
davidisrael.net.
.net. And there will be a link to that on the talkingabout.info website. You do have to come back. I want to thank you for being with me.
Thanks, John.
And I want to thank you for joining us, and I will see you next time. That website again, www.talkingabout.info. Thanks.